If you've ever found yourself talking to a Zoomer who's about to pay $400 for a Mosin Nagant in 2022, and you say, back in my day I paid $80 for those, and then you realized you sounded just like the boomers you used to mock who paid $200 for their M1 Grands, make sure to hit that subscribe button because this is the channel for you. We have become boomer back in the day when we were buying $100, $200, $300 surplus rifles that are now $1,000, which is absurd, but you know, that's the way it is now. That's the way the market has gone. So let's go ahead and jump right into the PTR-32. Why would I buy something that's kind of obscure like a PTR-32 versus just a conventional AK or something along those lines? Now, when I get into the modern firearms that are not of the surplus variety, it's because I'm buying them for defensive purposes. Now, I was living well behind enemy lines when I bought the PTR-32, and there were not a lot of options available to me unless I wanted to go and spend $5,000 on a pre-ban AR or a pre-ban Healy Decision lower receiver, which are in a legal gray area in Massachusetts. So that's why I bought the PTR-32. I wanted something that was compliant in the event, God forbid, I had to use it, because the only thing on the books that would protect me in that situation is English common law. In fact, you're obligated to retreat in a locale like that. So that ultimately is what led me to the PTR-32, is I wanted something that would take pre-ban magazines and cost-effective ammunition. Now, it turns out that the PTR-32 had a little bit of deceptive advertising when it was put out initially, showing that it would take pre-ban magazines with ease, that you could easily retrofit these pre-ban magazines to fit in the PTR-32. No, you can't. That is not actually true. And yes, I'm sure there are some examples and some individuals who have had great luck with that. Even PTR mentions that when you talk to their customer service. And I'll get into that in just a little bit because I did have to deal with their customer service. And we'll talk about why in just a minute. And then eventually we'll get to whether or not I recommend this rifle. Is it worth your money? Because at the price point, especially behind enemy lines, it's premium rifle territory. You're at the $1,400 price point with a lot of PTR-32s in various parts of the country, and depending on the situation, you're gonna spend $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. So there should be a premium care level as well with the customer service. Did I experience that? We'll get into it right now. Let's talk about the reliability of the PTR-32. From the get-go, I had problems. Unfortunately, that first magazine proved to be problematic. And I figured, okay, maybe this is just part of a break-in period. There is mention of that in the manual, and they have this really over-the-top break-in period where they mention you're supposed to fire a round, stop, clean the barrel, fire another round, and you do this for the first several hundred rounds. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I don't think anybody else is. This should run from the factory quite well, especially considering that premium price point. I paid for this rifle with my own money. I have no affiliation with PTR whatsoever. Let me make that very clear. A lot more out of this generation of PTR-32 because we know that the earlier PTR-32s experienced a lot of reliability and function issues. And of course, this one was no different, unfortunately. As I was firing the rifle, the bolt would lock to the rear. I would have to force it forward by mortaring the rifle. And eventually it completely seized and I was unable to easily mortar it, so I decided to go ahead and just stop firing. I felt that the rifle was no longer safe to continue shooting at that time, so I brought it home, I mortared the rifle again, and what did I experience? Well, the roller fell out of the bottom. That's not a good sign. So I contacted PTR about this. I explained the issues I had. I had failures to extract, failures to feed, I had the roller that broke. So I sent it to PTR. They sent me a label. Their customer service overall was pretty good. They were pretty fast about responding to my communication, emailing, phone calls, etc. And they were really on point when it came to all that for the most part. So I expected to have the rifle gone for potentially several weeks. And I believe I got it back within a month, which was pretty good because that was much faster than what they said was needed as far as the backlog of work that they potentially have. So I guess they just put that out there just so you don't expect to get it back super quick and then you can be pleasantly surprised if you do. So in that case, I was definitely pleasantly surprised with how quickly I received the rifle back. There were some issues when I got the rifle back. I was less than impressed with the condition that I received the rifle. There was rust on the interior and I was shocked. Again, once you get into that $1,400 range, you're no longer really mid-tier in my opinion. You're starting to get into the more premium rifles when you look at the spread of pricing across the market. So kind of on that upper mid-tier, teetering on premium, I guess you could say, right? So I expect a good level of customer service. And it shocked me that they would send a rifle back to the end user with rust. So I asked them what type of ammunition they used in an email exchange for the testing, because it looked like the type of corrosion that I've seen in Mosin Nagants or AKs over the years when firing highly corrosive ammunition and maybe allowing the firearm to sit for too long without thorough cleaning. They claimed it was all commercial ammunition, which I find questionable because I just dumped a bunch of commercial ammunition through my PTR and I've had none of the issues that the rifle came back to me with. So I'm not so sure that they're aware of what they're using, or they're not being honest. Maybe they had some old surplus stuff that was mixed in. But be aware, if you send your rifle off for customer service purposes, you may get it back in cosmetically worse shape than when you sent it off to them for work. Now, what did they change on my rifle to get it back into service? Now, I'm happy to report that after swapping out the barrel and replacing the roller, that it appears to be functioning just fine. I put another 250 or so rounds through it on this last range trip and experienced no problems. Do I trust it with my life as of right now? No, not until I put a much higher round count through the rifle will I feel confident trusting it with my life or recommending this rifle to you as something that you should consider acquiring for self-defense purposes. Now, let's talk about some of the features and the trigger, and we're going to get into that in a tabletop right now. So as far as features, one of the things I will say is this rifle is quite hard to charge. And if you are a smaller statured person, you may have some issues charging the PTR-32. I got it back after the customer service warranty work, and it was even harder to charge than when I sent it off for work, which was, again, you're spending premium money. They should have this a little more finely tuned. So we're gonna go ahead and close the bolt, put it on fire. We're gonna demo the trigger for you. So there's the shot fired. We're gonna hold on to it. HK slap it for you. And then there's your reset. Right about there. It's a pretty good trigger, all things considered, but it's nothing to write home about. I'm not sure the exact weight on the trigger. I don't have a trigger gauge. And I'm willing to bet that there might be a little bit of room for error with some of these, but I'm going to go ahead and post what the factory says as far as the trigger weight, and we're going to go ahead and jump into the other features of this. We'll talk about the handguard too, which is honestly one of the weak points of this particular one because it's not lined properly. All right, so let's go ahead and start at the muzzle of this rifle, and it's the basic PTR flash hider. I'm not a huge fan of it. I'll likely change it out for a surefire setup in the near future, especially should I decide to go get a can for it down the road, and that is something I would be very interested in eventually acquiring. Now, unfortunately, the bottom of the flash hider is open, and I'm sure that at a distance this does a pretty good job of suppressing the flash, being an A2 looking style flash hider, though because it is open on the bottom, if you're laying prone, it definitely could kick up quite a bit of dirt and reveal your position. So moving forward, the weak link of this one, of course, is the handguard itself. The way it's designed, it tends to get very hot sitting out in the sun, and the more rounds you put through this rifle, the harder it gets to hold on to. So I would highly encourage you to use shooting gloves when running this rifle for long periods of time. Moving more forward, we do have the polymer lower and the mag well. And you can see it has the standard AK style, HK style release. They do not have the button release option on these. And I found that the PMags do fit excellent in this rifle. Very easy to seat, very easy to rock into place. The only steel magazines that I've played with that don't require modification are new production Croatian magazines, and they seem to run okay, though I would recommend sticking with the PMags because that's what this magwell was really designed to accept, which again does limit your ability to really use these for self-defense if you live deep behind enemy lines, because it just won't be reliable. So for those purposes, I would not recommend it if you live in a banned location. This is a rifle that you would buy for a second kind of cool if you lived in that location and you already had all your ducks in a row with other defensive tools. Now, moving to the top, there is a rail that has been welded into place on this rifle, which is super nice. You're able to mount any number of different optics, and I might get a primary arms prism scope or something along those lines at some point for this rifle, but that's something to consider down the road. Let's talk about the sights real quick. Very basic HK style sights. They work very well, and as I said, shooting about 3 MOA unsupported at about 50 to 100 yards, I'm pretty happy with them for what they are. And you should be quite comfortable shooting iron sights if you're serious about preparedness or you're serious about just generally being good with your rifle. Moving to the buttstock. Basic HK style system. You of course have the 2 slots for your pins when you take down the rifle. And of course you do have the sling mounting option here, and then another sling mounting option towards the front of the rifle. Overall, it's not super lightweight for what it is. This is definitely one of the more heavy rifles to get into that shoots 7.62 by 39, maybe outside of certain configurations of Galil. This is not one that I would recommend that you go out and get if you just need a defensive carbine. As I said, lean more into that PTR-91 if you're going to go that direction, or one of the Zenith offerings, or MKE, or any number of other offerings in a more common caliber before jumping into this one. Now, the other cool note is the fact that H&K did produce a rifle just like this at one point for trials, and they never really put it into wide-scale production. So from that second kind of cool factor, again, this would be a pretty cool offering to have in your collection. Let's talk about accuracy. You can expect about 3 MOA out of this rifle while moving and shooting, while shooting unsupported, while standing, and I'm pretty okay with that, especially with iron sights, out of the type of system that this is. This is not known to be inherently the most accurate rifle on the market, though I know some people have reported even 1 MOA accuracy out of these if you're bench resting them and you're using them under the right conditions with the right ammunition. And I'm sure that that's very achievable, because overall it is a well-built firearm, so you can expect some pretty good results. But most of my shooting style at this point focuses more on moving, shooting, using cover, using concealment, and really running these rifles the way they were intended to be run. Now, do I recommend this rifle? At this point, I'm pretty mixed on it. Out of 5 stars, I would give this rifle about a 3.5 star rating until I'm able to get some more rounds through it to really feel comfortable promoting it to you. And I will have an update as to whether or not I will promote this rifle, likely done in a short on this channel. So make sure to stay tuned for that as I get more rounds through the PTR-32. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the support. I'll be posting these long form videos at least once a week going forward, depending upon how long it takes YouTube to approve them for posting. Thank you guys so much for the support. Take care and stay safe out there.